I used to believe that no matter how distant or dysfunctional a family could be, in a moment of true crisis, parents would always come through for their child. That belief died on a cold winter night. The night I crawled, broken and bleeding, to my parents' doorstep, and they stepped over me like I was nothing more than trash in their way. The accident happened fast. One wrong turn, black ice on the road, the sound of tires screaming against pavement, then metal crashing against metal. My body slammed into the steering wheel. My head cracked hard enough to black out the world. When I came to, the front of the car was mangled, smoke curling from under the hood. I was slumped over, disoriented, my leg burning with pain that told me something was terribly wrong. Blood dripped from my temple, blurring my vision, but I knew I had to move. Somehow I forced the door open and dragged myself out. My jeans were soaked in blood. My palms were torn raw from gravel. My breath came in ragged gasps as I pulled myself inch by inch down the street. I couldn't even stand. Every movement sent fire through my limbs. But I kept going, because I thought if I could just make it home, I'd be safe. It took everything I had to reach the front steps. My parents' house stood there, pristine and warm, glowing with holiday lights. I collapsed at the door and knocked with what little strength I had left. My voice barely made it past my cracked lips. "Mom, Dad, please." The door opened. For a moment, I thought I'd made it, that they'd see me, bloodied, broken, and rush to help, but my father just stared down at me with a look of mild irritation, as if I'd interrupted something inconvenient. "Don't bleed on the rug," he said coldly, stepping over me without hesitation. My mother followed, dressed in a glittering gown, makeup flawless, perfume strong. She looked at me with nothing but contempt. "God," she said with a snort. "You look like a stray mutt. What are you doing crawling around like that?" She stepped over me, too. Her heels clicked against the tiles inside the house as she adjusted her necklace and called out, "We're going to be late for our reservation." And then the door closed. They didn't call an ambulance. They didn't kneel beside me. They didn't ask if I was okay. They left me lying there, bleeding and shivering in the cold. I lay on that porch for what felt like forever, the frost creeping into my bones, the pain in my body almost numbing. But nothing hurt more than that moment. The moment I realized my parents didn't just fail me, they discarded me. We lived in a wealthy suburb of Colorado, the kind of neighborhood where everyone's lawn was perfectly trimmed and every family seemed picture perfect. On the outside, mine was no exception. My father was a respected businessman, always shaking hands at community events and giving speeches at the local church. My mother was the classic, elegant housewife, flawless makeup, charity brunches, and a social media feed full of smiling family photos. My older sister? She was the golden child, the princess. Everything she did was celebrated, whether it was mediocre or not. And then there was me, the middle child, the shadow. I was the one who got forgotten in group photos, blamed when things went wrong, and constantly compared to my sister's sparkling image. No matter how well I did in school, how many hours I worked, or how much I tried to keep the peace, it was never enough. I wasn't the child they showed off. I was the one they kept just polished enough to not embarrass them. They didn't care how I felt, only how things looked. It wasn't love. It was performance. And I played along, thinking one day I'd finally earn a place in their hearts. I was wrong. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and loneliness. Every hour bled into the next, punctuated only by the distant squeak of rubber soles and the soft beeping of machines monitoring what was left of my body. I lay there, ribs fractured, jaw wired, leg in a brace, waiting. At first, I convinced myself they were just busy, or maybe overwhelmed. I stared at the door each morning, heart leaping with every shadow passing in the hallway. But no one came. 3 days in, my phone buzzed. One message, from my mother. "Stop milking it. You're alive. Be grateful." I stared at the screen for a long time, hoping, idiotically, that another message would follow. An apology, a question, anything human. Nothing came. Later that evening, I opened social media, pure habit, and there it was, a photo of them. My parents, my sister, all dressed up, champagne flutes in hand. The caption under my sister's post read, Family is everything. Blessed quality time. I wanted to laugh, but the tight wires in my jaw made it impossible. I just stared, motionless, as a dull ache bloomed in my chest far deeper than any physical injury. My face was swollen, my skin discolored. I had tubes in my arms. And yet the only thing they worried about was keeping up the appearance of perfection. They didn't miss me. They didn't even mention me. In their version of family, I didn't exist. That realization was colder than the hospital room. I stopped waiting after that, stopped hoping. Something inside me turned silent. Not broken, just hollowed out. The part of me that once begged for their affection, for their recognition, for their approval, it curled up and died. I grieved it quietly in the dark. But then something else stirred. A flicker. Not rage, not yet. Just a sharp awareness. A crack in the illusion. When I was finally discharged, the nurse gently asked who would be picking me up. I almost laughed. I didn't even bother calling them. I wheeled myself outside, hailed a cab with a trembling hand, and gave the address of my tiny one-bedroom apartment. The driver glanced in the rearview mirror once, concern in his eyes, but said nothing. Home was empty. Cold in a different way. I spent the first few nights there trying to sleep through the pain, living on soup, bruises, and silence. But I had time. So much time. Too much. And in that stillness, I began to think. Not about how to heal, but how to reclaim something I hadn't even known I'd lost. My power. I started small. Just out of necessity, I checked my credit report. What I found froze my blood faster than any winter night. There were 3 credit cards I didn't recognize. A car loan in my name. A line of credit for a home renovation I never authorized. All maxed out. I called the banks. They sent documentation. Signatures I'd never written stared back at me from the pages. My name, forged in my father's stiff, aggressive handwriting. I was their safety net. Their ghost account. While I scraped by with secondhand clothes and frozen dinners, they were taking vacations and remodeling kitchens using debt under my name. And no one had ever asked my permission. The realization wasn't just betrayal. It was weaponized indifference. That was when the flicker inside me grew into something sharper. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I touched them. Documented. Bank statements, forged applications, screenshots of my sister's posts showing off expensive gifts I unknowingly paid for. I began recording phone calls. Each conversation with my parents now served a dual purpose. Every lie, every brush off, every moment of gaslighting became part of a growing file I named Truth. I wasn't just collecting proof. I was building a case. Not for the police, not for revenge, not yet. This was for me. To remind myself I wasn't crazy, that everything I felt was real. And while I collected evidence, I started rebuilding my body, one breath at a time. I weaned off the pain meds, walked from bed to couch, from couch to bathroom, crutches to cane, cane to nothing. Every step was a rebellion against their prophecy that I'd always be broken. I worked again. Quiet jobs, freelance, I saved. I made no announcements, posted no photos, said nothing. Let them believe I was still the quiet failure. Let them forget I existed, because people like them never look down until it's too late. I waited, patiently, carefully. Then came the invitation. Not to me, of course, I was still invisible. But they posted about it, like they always did. Annual Christmas Gala. Can't wait to host everyone we love most. The guest list included business partners, church friends, socialites, donors, the people whose opinions they valued more than their own blood. It was perfect. I circled the date in red ink on my calendar. I printed everything. Physical copies, each piece of proof highlighted, labeled, impossible to deny. I added hospital records, discharge forms, even photos of my bruised, battered face lying in that hospital bed while they dined out and smiled for selfies. I even included the message my mother sent. Stop milking it. You're alive. Be grateful. I printed it in bold. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to walk. On steady legs, in a quiet dress, and drop a truth bomb into the heart of their golden world. Let the lies rot under the lights they so desperately clung to. The countdown began, one day at a time. And for once in my life, I didn't feel powerless. I felt ready. The Christmas party glittered like something out of a magazine. Golden lights wrapped around every banister. Classical music humming softly beneath the sound of clinking glasses and shallow compliments. Inside that house, nothing had changed. My mother twirled an emerald silk, her diamond necklace catching the chandelier light. My father laughed too loud at jokes that weren't funny, a whiskey in one hand, shaking the hands of men who'd help fund his next deal. My sister floated through the crowd with her fiancé, flashing her new engagement ring to anyone who would listen. They didn't see me enter. I didn't wear anything dramatic, just a simple black dress, neat hair, no makeup. I didn't need theatrics. The truth was enough. I moved quietly to the grand piano in the center of the room. All eyes were on the hosts, until I placed a thick folder down on the glossy wood with a soft thud. Heads turned, conversations died mid-sentence. My mother's smile faltered. My father froze. And then I spoke. "I'm the daughter they don't talk about," I said calmly, my voice cutting clean through the room. "The one they left bleeding on their doorstep last winter. The one they used, ignored, and tried to erase." Silence. My mother stepped forward quickly, fake smile returning like muscle memory. "Sweetheart, this isn't the time. It's the perfect time," I said. "This is your favorite stage, isn't it? All your important people. All your masks polished and ready. Let's peel a few off." I opened the folder and pulled out the first page. A credit card statement. This card is in my name. It's been used for years. Charges include luxury vacations, jewelry, designer handbags. I didn't approve any of it. My father forged my signature. Gasps. Next page. A hospital discharge form. This was the night of my accident. I crawled to this house, broken and bleeding. No one called an ambulance. No one offered help. I was told not to bleed on the rug. A shaky voice in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God." Then came the recordings. First, my mother's voice. "Look at you," like a stray mutt on the street. Laughter. Then my father, "At least you're out of the way tonight." The room held its breath. People turned to my parents, whose faces had gone pale. My mother trembled. My father looked like someone had slapped him. My sister whispered, "She's lying." But no one listened. I laid down more documents. Forged loan agreements, photos of my bruised face in a hospital bed, screenshots of texts, bank transfers, everything they thought they could bury. The mask of perfection cracked under the weight of truth. One of my father's longtime business partners stepped forward, jaw tight. "Is this true?" he asked. My father tried to speak, but his voice failed him. The man shook his head and turned away. "We're done." Another guest, a woman who often bragged about being my mother's closest friend, looked at her with disgust. "You always said your daughter was troubled. Now I see who the real problem is." One by one, people started leaving. The laughter that once echoed through the house was gone, replaced by whispers and sidelong glances. The room emptied like a sinking ship. And I just stood there, silent, letting the wreckage unfold. When the last door shut, the only sound left was my mother's choked sobs and my father's ragged breathing. They looked smaller somehow, like their golden world had collapsed and all that was left were two frightened strangers in fancy clothes. My father's voice broke. "Please, don't do this. You'll ruin us." I looked at him, and for the first time in my life, I felt nothing. "You ruined yourselves. I just turned the lights on." My mother reached for me, mascara streaking down her face. "We can fix this. We didn't know." I stepped back. "You knew. You just didn't care." Then I turned and walked out of the house I had once called home. The winter air bit at my skin, but it felt clean, like I'd finally shed something that had been poisoning me for years. Behind me, they didn't follow. A few weeks later, the fallout began. My father lost a major contract. Quiet financial audits became public. Investigations followed. My mother, once the queen of every charity event, found herself uninvited, whispered about, avoided. Her friends were quick to distance themselves. The perfect family reputation they had built so carefully turned to dust. As for me, I didn't celebrate. I didn't post about it. I just lived. I got back to work. I paid off the debts in my name, one by one. I went to therapy. I built something of my own, not for approval, not for validation, but because I finally understood that my worth had never depended on them. And for the first time, I wasn't chasing anyone's love. I wasn't hoping they'd say, "I'm proud of you." I didn't need it. I had survived what they tried to erase. Now, I was choosing myself. Not out of spite, but out of freedom.